Here's my thought for the day. The cure for racism starts with a revelation from God. The proper revelation from God. Let's read. In verse number 9, the next day, as they were traveling and nearing the city, Peter went up to pray on the housetop about noon. Then he became hungry and wanted to eat, but while they were preparing something, he went into a visionary state. He saw heaven open, and an object that resembled a large sheet coming down, being lowered by its four corners to the earth. In it were all the four-footed animals, reptiles of the earth, and the birds of the sky. Then a voice said to him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." "No, Lord," Peter said, "for I have never eaten anything common or ritually unclean." Again, a second time, a voice said, "What God has made clean, you must not call common." This happened 3 times, and then the object was taken into heaven. Now, this is a very fascinating story because it's also a turn of events in the movement of the early church. Up until this time, Peter and him pretty much had only preached the gospel to the Jews. But what is more fascinating is that they only thought that Jews could be saved. In other words, they didn't think that God was even offering salvation to anyone that wasn't a Jew. Now, Peter now is in this vision, and he sees this sheet comes down, and in this sheet he sees all of the meat, the animals that the law expressly said he shouldn't eat. And when the voice said, "Kill and eat," he said, "Not me, Lord. I've never eaten anything unclean." The voice corrected him and said, "What God cleanses, don't you call uncommon." Now, the application of this, because Peter later was wondering, he understood what the voice meant. I mean, he understood the meaning of the vision. He really didn't understand how to apply it. And he would soon come to understand that God was talking about people. We have a race problem even in the church today. And so we try all kinds of different cures, whether it's critical race theory, or he's fighting against it, or racial healing, okay? And they don't work. And let me tell you why they don't work. They don't work because they don't get at the heart of the revelation. One of the most fascinating things, astonishing things about the previous president and how he charged so many white evangelicals. The question is why? But here's my point. Let's go back to what God has just said here. What he has cleansed, don't call uncommon. Let's put it another way. What God accepts, you should accept. See, the cure of racism is going to start with the proper revelation of how God sees humanity. One of the most horrible things about slavery was that you had to condition people to not see humanity as God sees humanity. In the previous chapter, Philip preached to an Ethiopian. Of course, we know Ethiopians are very dark-skinned people. But it didn't matter because this Ethiopian was returning from the worship of God, and God sent Philip to expressly preach the gospel to this eunuch. How is it that so many in the church see race, culture, and the frailty of humanity? There was Christian institutions, churches that didn't want, and still today don't want to fellowship with people outside of their race, outside of their community. It is still a problem, even though laws have changed. You see, the only way it is going to change is people have to have the right revelation. And that revelation, of course, is contained in the scriptures. We have it. We won't necessarily have a vision like Peter had, but we certainly got the vision that God had given recorded. We have John 3:16, for God so loved the world. We got multiple scriptures that whosoever believeth on Jesus will be saved. If I, as a black man, believe on Jesus, you as a white man believe on Jesus, you as a Hispanic, see, Asian, it doesn't matter, because salvation all comes from one source. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So you see, no one can boast against another, since we're all sinners. You see, the cure of racism starts spiritually with God's revelation, God's perspective on humanity. And that's how we're going to cure racism. When we stop calling what God has cleansed uncommon. And as he exhorted and commanded Peter, what he's cleansed, you don't call uncommon. That's today's morning word. Have a blessed day. Till next time, I'll see you then.